It's staggering to see how much Milwaukee has come, but how far we need to go as well. Scientists have estimated that in order to avoid the worst effects of climate change, global carbon dioxide emissions need to reach a net zero by around mid-century, which is approximately 30 years from now. Net zero is a term that means the amount of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases being released into the atmosphere is equal or less than the amount being removed. Achieving net zero emissions will require significant efforts. Changes in transportation, energy generation, industry, and agriculture, as well as investments in technology, need to be made in order to capture and store carbon dioxide. Despite the younger generation being taught about being aware of climate change and a marketing campaign by the Milwaukee Recycle program, our contribution to pollution isn't being focused enough. According to the Pew Research Center, a survey was conducted across 19 countries. Participants of the survey ranked the biggest threats that their country faces. Among those threats are global climate change, the spread of false information online, cyber attacks from other countries, the condition of the global economy, and the spread of infectious diseases. Across those 19 countries, participants saw global climate change as the biggest threat to their country. But I want to take more time to focus on this graphic. It's part of the same study, but it focuses on each country's and shows the most common and least common responses. As you can see, global climate change was the least common response in the United States. For a country that's been talking about the environment for over 20 years now, not seeing it as a bigger problem concerns me. I understand the problems that arise from cyber attacks and the spread of misinformation. These are all a concern to have, but it still feels like we're still not doing enough to help the situation and create less waste in our country. Locally, there are things being done. On the Milwaukee Recycle website, you can see a ton of information to make sure people know what can be collected. Throughout recent U.S. history, the environment has become more of a political issue. In 1970, Richard Nixon signed an executive order creating the EPA. But in 1986, President Ronald Reagan made a public display of removing the solar panels at the White House installed by Jimmy Carter. In 1997, Bill Clinton signed the Kyoto Protocol, representing the United States' commitment to reducing greenhouse gases. But this was purely symbolic because it was never ratified by the Senate due to opposition. In 2015, President Obama's administration signed the Paris Agreement to reduce greenhouse gases. But in 2017, President Donald Trump withdrew from it. If you want to make sure our environment is taken care of, why haven't we done it already? When I took on this project, I was skeptical of what I was going to learn. I wasn't sure we were doing enough. And as I looked up more and more things, quite obvious we're not. There's still a lot we can do, but as individuals, there's only so much. The grand scheme of things, it comes down to the laws we pass and the officials we elect. Taxpayers have paid enough and can only do so much for what these corporations have done to our environment.